You know how I know that Donald Trump believes and those around him that this $400 million plane that he's accepting from Qatar, yes, it's about to happen, folks. Remember the $400 million grift gift coming from the country of Qatar to Donald Trump in a two-step process. Once it goes to the Air Force, but then when he leaves, he flies away in that plane as a gift to take to his presidential library. That's about to happen. We haven't talked about it in a while, but the memorandum of understanding between the two countries has been signed by Pete Hegseth and the Interior Minister in Qatar. And guess what language they included? They included a declaration that nothing should be construed here as a bribe or as a promise or an acceptance of anything of value or undue influence or corrupt practices. It's all of those things. And the fact that they felt they had to go out of their way to put that language in only reinforces that this is a bribe, a violation of the Constitution and its emoluments clause, and will lead to lawsuits. Not only that, think about the money that's being wasted. $400 million, let's just make it $1 billion to renovate this plane, to make it sufficient to fly as Air Force One. And then a year or 2 years in order to get it into that shape? What about the $4 billion we already gave Boeing in the first Trump administration to build 2 Air Force Ones? And it's still in progress and the money's already sunk. So now we're going to put another 500, call it $1 billion, into fixing the quote unquote gift on taxpayer dollars. And then Donald Trump flies away with the plane. Yep. We're back at it. We're on legal AF because that MOU, that memorandum of understanding, is out. The Washington Post is reporting on it, and we're all together here to explore this latest scandal. This is, I joked with the Midas Touch people. They used to call the Kennedy JFK era with Jackie O Camelot. I call this Scamelot. This is just one scam and scandal after another. It's either Scandalot or Scamelot. All right, let's get into it while we're here. You're not into Scandalot. You're here to cover it with me. Legal AF, hit the YouTube button for subscribes, and that really helps us. All right, just because we haven't talked about it recently doesn't mean it's not happening. It is happening. Now, let me talk about how Donald Trump prepared for this. First, he ordered his Department of Justice, Pam Bondi head, Attorney General, to basically get rid of, chloroform, take in the back and shoot, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. There was actually a statute on the books that the Department of Justice was concerned about. We didn't like bribery in the good old days before the Trump administration. We didn't like our U.S. businesses bribing foreign companies and foreign dignitaries and foreign governments in order to do business in those countries, and vice versa. We didn't want foreign money infiltrating America. But the first thing that the thief in chief, the fraudster in chief, the felon in chief, the first thing he did is tell his Department of Justice, get rid of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act and get rid of the entire division of the Department of Justice that's responsible for Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. Okay, let's get rid of that. So I found it ironic that they remembered the term when they wrote the MOU. Now, if you can believe it, the reporting is that Qatar is more ethical than Donald Trump's administration. Let me repeat that. Qatar, in the Gulf states, is more ethical than Donald Trump about this plane because they wanted a provision in there that it stays with America. It stays with the U.S. Air Force. And they struck that, the Trump administration, Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, redlined it right the heck out of there because that's not what their plan is. What their plan is, and they've said it publicly, is that they're going to take the plane. They're going to use it for maybe a year. Again, remember, parallel. The Boeing the Boeing planes to be Air Force One that Donald Trump signed off on back in his first term are going to be delivered in the next year or two. What are we going to have? 3 Air Force Ones? I know Donald Trump wants to change the paint job. Who doesn't think that when Air Force One flies in with that blue color, that baby blue color, the way it's which came out of the JFK Jackie O days, doesn't indicate American power. Though Donald Trump wants it dark blue with gold and red. Oh my God, really? Seriously? This guy doesn't have taste in his mouth, let alone anywhere else. But so we're going to spend $4 billion on the Boeing planes. That's already sunk costs, already been spent by the taxpayers, and another $1 billion to fix this plane. And then at the end, they're going to fly it away to the presidential library. First, let me show you a clip of Pete Hegseth stammering his way with Senator Jack Reed about the cost, about how long it's going to take. He doesn't know anything, or he knows it and he's not going to tell him. Let's run the clip of when Hegseth was grilled about this Qatarian gift in the Senate.
There's a general understanding that you have taken possession of this Qatari aircraft, the 747. But there are public reports that the Qataris have not yet signed a memorandum of understanding, which would specify that the agreement was initiated by the Trump administration and Qatar is not responsible for any future transfers of the plane's ownership. Are you in possession of the Qatari airplane now?
Any specifics about future aircraft that could be Air Force One can't be discussed here, but
sure, it can be discussed
there is a
here.
conversation about a memorandum of understanding. A memorandum of understanding remains to be signed, Senator.
You have signed a contract with a company to reconfigure the aircraft. What is the price of that contract?
That cannot be revealed in this setting, sir.
Why can't it be revealed in this setting? Well, this is the Appropriations Committee of the United States Senate. We appropriate the money that you will spend after it's authorized by my committee. And you cannot tell us how much the contract is for?
You will have that number, Senator. It just can't be talked about.
You want it now. It's been signed. The contract has been signed, correct? The contract has been signed?
The memorandum of understanding is not complete.
I'm talking about the contract with the American contractor. Has it been signed?
It's nothing on that front that I'm aware of is being executed.
Well, that's contrary to what we've all heard. Second thing, what's the delivery time in the contract?
Again, the delivery time of anything of that sensitive nature is not for public consumption.
Can you tell me the delivery time for the Boeing aircraft that were being prepared for Air Force One? Was that in the contract?
One of the problems is that the way we actually procure aircraft in this country takes so long that when it's ordered, it's 7, 8, 9, 10 years late, requiring the necessity for a stopgap alternative.
Well, no. What you've just said is that the Boeing information was public knowledge. The delivery date, the cost overruns, but this is not. Because this is not only a bad deal for the American public, it is just it's gratifying the president's ego. That's all it is. Thank you.
Do you really think he doesn't know, or he's just not going to tell the American people? This is allegedly the most transparent presidency we've ever seen. Okay. So here's the problems as we've outlined. Now that the MOU is out in draft, there's a couple of more tweaks, but it's getting signed this week or next week, and that plane is flying here. And we're going to be talking a lot about it. Let's start with the emoluments clause. We have two of them in the Constitution. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 7 basically says you got to live off of your salary as president, and you can't take a gift or an emolument, something of value, from any of the states, okay? And then we have a foreign emoluments clause. That's how worried our framers and founding fathers were about a president being bribed. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8, which says you can't take any emolument or gift from a foreign country. Well, that's exactly what this is. Now, Donald Trump says, well, it's not to me. It's to the people of the United States of America. It's not, because you just struck the language that says it stays with the U.S. Air Force, because your plan is to take it to the presidential library, which means you're putting it in your pocket. This is a president, as we know, in the last term, took hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of gifts that he never listed and never disclosed, as he's required to do under the law. And he just pilfered his way. I mean, they took everything off the walls they could in the White House, lined their pockets with all the gifts, and ran out the door. Same president. There's also sections of the criminal statutes which deal with this. 18 United States Code 201, bribery of a public official. Do you think it was a coincidence that in the memorandum of understanding language, they put in language that says nothing in this MOU shall be construed or interpreted as a promise an acceptance, a bribe, undue influence, anything of value. Why? Just because the parties try to say that in the MOU? That's not how that works. But two thieves can get together and say, we're going to break into the house next door, but nothing should be interpreted as us committing crimes. We've agreed to that. Cares? That's not how criminal analysis works. And then there's also 18 USC section, or United States Code section 641, theft of government property. That's why they struck the language about this. That's why they struck the language about the plane staying with the United States Air Force. How can Donald Trump get away with this? Unless and until a public interest group, states attorneys generals, and others step forward, and they have the standing to do it. You know, buried in that big, beautiful bill was a lot of money to pay for this plane. It's buried within the billions of dollars that the Department of Defense obtained. There was like a $15 billion built in there. That's going to pay for the plane. But worse, our national security is undermined because there's reporting that there's going to be a diversion of funds away from our nuclear program to pay so Donald Trump can have a golden toilet on the new plane. We have something called the Sentinel program, which has been cost overrun, but it deals with our nuclear missiles. We're taking the money away from the Sentinel program and we're putting it into the gold toilets and telephones on the Qatari gift. This is Donald Trump's MO over and over again, whether it's his cryptocurrency business, his using the White House as an extension of the Trump organization and its business, or this. It's the same MO. It's the same modus operandi. The taxpayers, you and me and the voters, pick up the cost of the expenses related to Donald Trump's scheme, and he takes the profit. And his profit is gross, literally, because there's no expenses netted out because we pay them. What an amazing business model. Could you imagine if you could open a business like Donald Trump has, where you get somebody else to pay all of the expenses and you keep all of the revenue? And right? The plane, you and I are paying $1 billion on top of the $4 billion we paid for the Boeing planes so that Donald Trump can fly around in this, golden latrine plane and then take it away with him as a gift and a bribe. And what do you think the American policy under Donald Trump's going to be towards the Qataris? You think it's going to be negative or positive? Do you think it won't have any, put it in comments. Do you think it won't have any influence on our foreign policy and our relationship with Qatar? That they just gave the president and soon to be, not soon enough when he leaves, soon to be a citizen Trump, a $400 million plus $1 billion, a $1.5 billion gift? Even they're worried about it. That's why they wanted that language in there, because they're more ethical than Donald Trump. And that's saying a lot. I'm Michael Popok. You're on Legal AF. Until my next report, take a moment, hit the free subscribe button. Now more than ever, you need to keep us on the air. That's the way to do it. So until my next report, this is Michael. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.